Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing the Reread, Rewrite, and Burn book challenge, Fantasy Romance Edition. Alright guys, so this is one of my absolute favorite bookish challenges. I think I've done this challenge twice a year since starting BookTube. So if you are unfamiliar with the Reread, Rewrite, and Burn book challenge, it is exactly like the name suggests. I have 12 of my favorite fantasy romance titles in this jar, and I'm going to be selecting them 3 at a time, and I'm going to have to decide which book I want to reread, which book I want to rewrite, and which book I want to burn. So I'm hoping you guys can get a decent rec out of this. There are 12 fantasy romance books in that jar, and I'm going to give you a brief spoiler-free synopsis of each book, and then I'm going to have some tough decisions to make. So anyway, this is a bit of a longer video, so let's get into it. If you are unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram, Goodreads, and Patreon, all linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's get into the book challenge. All right, let the challenge begin. So round 1, let's see if I can actually read my own handwriting, because despite the fact that I work in education, my handwriting is dreadful. So first up we have, first up is Heartless Hunter, which is a YA fantasy romance. It was actually one of my Patreon book club picks, and it is following a girl who is a witch, and she's a vigilante because in this society, witches are actually hunted, and she has to team up with a witch hunter in order to kind of solve this mystery, and there's a romance between them. And overall, it was a really solid start to a YA fantasy story. There was some bits about the magic system that I thought were a little off-putting, but that I think is just like a me thing. But yeah, so overall, it was a really solid read. So I feel like that's a good one to start with. Next up we have Curse of the Thorn King. Okay, this is interesting. I don't know how I'm going to choose between these. So Curse of the Thorn King is by Lizette Marshall. It's a very short Beauty and the Beast reimagining. We're following this girl who is an assassin, and she is supposed to kill the King of the Fae. However, when she gets there, she realizes that she was very unprepared because the King of the Fae has the ability to use his voice to get her to do whatever he wants. And like I said, Beauty and the Beast reimagining, so they're in this enchanted castle that neither of them can escape. And overall, it was a very, very solid read. I will say it is a little bit forgettable because I don't remember a lot of like the little details, but this was also a Patreon book club pick, so that's actually kind of funny. And last up, we have Feathers So Vicious. Okay, so this is a dark fantasy romance. It's the first book in a dark fantasy romance duology by Liv Zander. Definitely check the trigger warnings. But this is following a girl that lives in a society where there are ravens, and ravens are actually hunted. So there are these people that are able to shift into ravens. And actually the first scene really stands out because it's this woman who's being tortured, and the only way to figure out if a person is a raven or not is essentially to torture them. And she turns into a raven, and then she's like kind of brutally killed, and it's pretty horrible. But anyway, our main character ends up being kidnapped by 2 ravens who are trying to use her to get another raven that was taken by, I believe, her father or her family back. And it's their story, and one of the ravens is like super dark, super messed up, morally gray, and just like the darker side of morally gray. And then the other raven is like more golden retriever, except in the bedroom. And overall, it was a really, really good book. So now let me get the books, and I'm going to have to decide which one I want to reread, rewrite, and burn. Okay, I am back. I have all 3 books, and honestly, this round might be one of the hardest rounds I've ever done of this game, just because I'm pretty sure I rated all 3 of these books the exact same thing. I think they are all 3.75 or 4 stars. So I really don't want to burn any of them, and I kind of want to rewrite all of them. This is so tough. I have a decision, but I don't know. I feel like when I'm editing this video back, I'm going to immediately regret the decision I just came to. So I will say I want to rewrite Curse of the Thorn King. And that is because I feel like there was so much potential with this book that if it was a little bit longer, or maybe part of a series we really could have spent more time on this slow burn relationship. We could have given our main character a little bit more of a backstory. We do get a backstory. Like, it's still a very, very good book. I just want a little bit more. It's also, like, very short. So if anything, I would rewrite this just so it could be a little bit longer. So that was the easy one. I don't really want to burn either of these books. However, I think I'm going to reread. And I'll explain. I'm going to reread Feathers So Vicious. Now, my only reasoning behind this book was very, very unique. I hadn't read anything really similar to it. It is very dark. I really enjoyed dark fantasy romance, slightly more than YA fantasy at the moment. So I think I would reread Feathers So Vicious, which means I would burn Heartless Hunter, the Crimson Moth, which honestly, I think I might have actually rated this a slightly higher than Feathers So Vicious. The thing is with this book, it is very similar to a lot of other YA fantasy romances I've read. So this gave me such Serpent and Dove vibes. And I've read a lot of witch and witch hunter type romances, so this wasn't quite as standout and unique as Feathers So Vicious, but it was still a very solid read. So I very much regret burning this. I don't want to burn it. It's just out of the three, I think this is the one that would have to go. Okay, so that round was painful. On to round two, and I'm getting slightly concerned. So let's see. First up we have Slaying the Vampire Conqueror. I adored this book. It's by Carissa Broadbent. You can read it as a standalone. And we are following this girl that ends up joining a cult when she's very, very young. And they end up taking her eyes, but in return, she's able to use the threads of fate to kind of see. And I thought that was a very, like, unique twist. I never read a book from, like, that perspective. But anyway, as she grows up, she ends up being given the mission that she has to become the seer for this vampire conqueror and eventually assassinate him. And it's their romance. And I just thought it was so good. I will say it's a little bit slower paced, but overall, I really, really enjoyed it. Okay. Next up, we have Spark of the Everflame. I'm going to hate this round with a burning passion. I can already tell. Spark of the Everflame is the first book in the Kindred Curse Saga series, and it's an adult fantasy romance. We're following Diem, and she lives in a world where there are descended, and these descended are descended from gods, so they're super powerful. And her mother is a healer, but is able to go into the descended area in order to heal them. Well, her boyfriend is also part of this human rebel group because the descended have really been looking down on the humans. So the humans want to pretty much take down the descended. So one day Diem's mother ends up going missing, and Diem has to decide if she wants to trust the descended and try to find her mother that way or join this rebel group. And it goes from there. It is the slowest of slow burns. The second book, Glow of the Everflame, is one of my favorite fantasy romances of the year. It is so unbelievably good. So already, this is going to be very, very tough. I don't want to burn either of those books. So let's see. And last up, we have Thief of Silver and Souls. So this is by Eva Chase. It is a Wide Shoes fantasy romance. However, if you are new to Wide Shoes and you want something that is more fantasy romance, I feel like this is the way to go. This book is the least Wide Shoes of any Wide Shoes book I feel like I've read. We're following this girl that after the death of her sister is really struggling with her power, and she ends up finding this noblewoman who is dying, and when she touches her, she accidentally takes this noblewoman's soul into her body. Now, this woman knows of this coup that is being planned and wants our main character to help, and in doing so, she ends up partnering with these three guys, and it goes from there. It was actually my first Patreon book club book. So, I don't know, I kind of have sentimental feelings just because of that. But overall, this was a very fun read. So let me get the books, and then I will make a really, really tough decision. Okay, I have the books. Unlike the last round, this round, I immediately know which book I want to burn. However, I don't know which one I want to reread and rewrite. So first off, we are burning Thief of Silver and Souls, which honestly is very, very sad because I did really enjoy this book. However, compared to the other two books are just such standouts and such favorites, and this, while enjoyable, was somewhat forgettable. I do plan on continuing with this series, however, and I've heard really good things. So although I am burning this, I did enjoy it. It's just the other two books I adore. So that leaves me with the other two books. So we have Slaying the Vampire Conqueror and Spark of the Everflame. I think I'm going to rewrite, and this might surprise some people, Spark of the Everflame, because while I love this series, I still have to read Heat of the Everflame. Glow of the Everflame is my favorite by far. I feel like this book had some pacing issues, not very many. This is still such a solid read, and it is also the start of a series, and I feel like it's really hard to make an amazing book one just because there's so much you have to set up. However, I do feel like there were some slower parts of this book, and there were some parts where I wasn't as interested. So I might change some of the pacing issues. Overall, this is still an amazing read, but if I have to pick between the two, this is the one I would rewrite, which means I would reread Slaying the Vampire Conqueror, and I am so okay with that decision because I love this book and this romance so much. There's honestly nothing I would change, and Carissa Broadbent's writing is so, so good. I don't think I could improve upon it. Definitely could not improve upon it. So I would reread Slaying the Vampire Conqueror. Okay, that was not bad. So I'm feeling a little bit better. Let's see, for round 3, we still have my favorite fantasy romance of the year in here. So I'm interested to see what books are going to go against that. Okay, we have The Last Lost Girl. So this is a Peter Pan reimagining. I will say I thought it was a standalone. It's not. It is the first book in a series, and it ends on a massive cliffhanger, and I don't believe the second book is out yet. So I am very patiently waiting for the sequel. But this is following a girl who ends up she's an orphan, and she's adopted by this older girl, and they're essentially sisters. Now, her older sister, who found her and really helped her and helped raise her, is named Belle, and she's obsessed with Peter Pan and seems to harbor some magical abilities. Well, one day, Belle kind of loses it a little bit and says she has to go back to Neverland, and she takes our main character with her. And when our main character gets there, she realizes that Neverland is real, and the evil Peter Pan is also hunting her. So she is saved by a guy with a hook, and it is their romance. There's also a bit of an amnesia trope in this, which is something I don't normally enjoy, but for some reason it really worked with this book. So I love this, and I feel like not a lot of people are talking about this series. So it is by Casey L. Bond. Highly, highly recommend if you want a really cool like Peter Pan reimagining. Okay, so next up we have Knew It Was Coming. When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker, my favorite fantasy romance book I read so far this year. I've talked about it ad nauseum, so I'm really not going to go into it. Also, it's really hard to summarize, but we're essentially following this girl named Rave, who is an assassin who is trying to kill these people that are abusing their power, because in this world there are some people that are able to sing the song of the creators, which allows them to have these elemental magical abilities. And like I said, they've been abusing them. So while our main character, Rave, is trying to assassinate one of these people, she is captured, and it goes from there. There's dragons, there's slow burn romance, there's mysteries. It is so good, and it's all set in this very immersive and beautiful world. Highly recommend the audiobook. So that is going to be really tough. And last up we have The Ever King by L.J. Andrews. This is going to be the toughest round. This is going to be hard. I'm not looking forward to this at all because I love this book as well. So The Ever King is following this girl whose father ended up locking up this guy named Eric in the Ever, and he's the prince of the Ever, which is like this underwater realm. And our main character ends up accidentally setting him free, to which Eric ends up kidnapping her and is going to use her to get revenge on her father. Now, I have said this in every video. The main guy in this is essentially Aaron Warner from Shatter Me, but make him a pirate, and I live for that. So he is one of my top book boyfriends, and this round is gonna suck. So I'm gonna get the 3 books, and I'm gonna have a very tough decision to make. All right, I have all 3 books. I'm not burning any of them, I refuse. I don't know. I literally would not burn any of these books if I could help it. This is not fair. I will say I'm gonna reread When the Moon Hatched. I love this book, and I couldn't even begin to try to rewrite it because Sarah A. Parker's writing style is just so unique, and the way she tells stories is like not linear, so you never know what is going to be relevant and like what important information you need. Like I could not rewrite this book in her writing style at all. So I'm going to say I'm going to reread When the Moon Hatched, And that leaves me with these 2 books, and I have no idea. I have no idea. And I also haven't read the sequel to either book, so it's not like I can like base it off the sequel. And I loved both of these books so much. I don't know, and I don't want to just like have me staring at these books for too long. Darn. I don't know. I guess okay. I'm gonna rewrite The Ever King, and honestly, I don't even know what I would do to rewrite it. Maybe make it a little bit longer, have some more spicy scenes with Eric, because like I said, top book boyfriend. Honestly, that's all I would rewrite. I would just add more spicy scenes with Eric, and that's me. So, yeah. So this one I would rewrite, which means I would burn The Last Lost Girl, and that really hurts my heart and soul, and there is no reason other than I just prefer the love interest in The Ever King slightly more than the love interest in this book. However, this book is still absolutely amazing, and if you have not read it yet, please read it, and it is still so good. It's just out of the 3. If this book had not been with those 2 other books, it would not be being burned right now. This was definitely the toughest round, but unfortunately, I have to burn The Last Lost Girl. I'm really not happy about that round. So this is the final round. I'm really sad, and part of me wants to just redo this video so I don't have those 3 books up against each other, but that wouldn't be fair, so just gonna be sad. Okay, first up we have A Fate Inked in Blood. I really enjoyed this. It's by Danielle L. Jensen. It is a Norse-inspired fantasy romance. We're following this girl that is in a loveless marriage because her husband was marked by the gods, so he has these magical abilities, so she was kind of forced to marry him, and they really just do not get along, and this becomes very apparent when her husband ends up having her be forced to fight in a duel to the death against another, like, Viking clan. And in doing so, we find out that our main character also possesses this godlike ability. So she's essentially being used as a pawn for these like different Viking groups. So it's really just her trying to like gain her own freedom and her own power. And while this is going on, the son of one of these Viking groups ends up kind of having a bit of an interest in our main character. And it reminded me a lot of From Blood and Ash. I can't really explain why, but if you read the book, the ending definitely gave me the first From Blood and Ash vibes. But overall, I really liked it. So that is the first book. I actually know what all the books are. I don't know why I'm pulling them out because I'm looking at them right there. And next up we have A Court This Cruel and Lovely. I gotta be honest with you, I have not finished reading this book yet. However, I am enjoying it immensely, which is why I wanted to put it in here. This is a fantasy romance that I will say hooks you immediately. It reminds me a little bit of What Lies Beyond the Veil by Harper L. Woods. It has similar vibes. But we're following this girl that lives in this world where babies they have power, and their power is given to the gods when they're very young. Some don't even survive this. It's a very like taxing, painful ceremony. And our main character somehow is able to keep her power. So if she is found, she will be killed in this community. And she is trying to run from her life because her neighbors have realized that she does have this power. And she ends up finding this like mercenary who also has powers, and he agrees to help train her if she will help him get into this castle, and it goes from there. Apparently it's part of a multi-book series, and I'm very excited to continue. That means the last book is How Does It Feel? And I love this unhinged dark fantasy romance. I read the second book, What Did You Do? And honestly, it doesn't have good reviews on Goodreads. It was so much fun and such a time and really needs an editor, but besides that, I had a great time with it. So don't always trust Goodreads reviews, because I was really worried going into that audiobook, and honestly, it was so much fun. So let me get those 3 books, and then we will do our final round. I just realized I didn't explain what How Does It Feel is actually about, but it's following this girl that when she was younger, she believed she saw a fairy, and that made her obsessed with animals that have wings. So when she becomes an adult, she's trying to find this endangered moth. And while she is searching for the mushrooms that this moth likes to eat, she ends up falling into the Unseelie Court, where she is immediately almost killed so many times by the prince of the Unseelie Court. And he is the perfect, like, crazy, morally gray shadow daddy that I'm obsessed with. It definitely has, like, Fortuna Sworn vibes by KJ Sutton. And it is such a fun time. So I will say This round, it's not easy, but I will say I know the one I want to rewrite, and it is How Does It Feel? Because this book definitely has some editing and pacing issues. It is still so much fun. And honestly, it's not the first book as much. The second book, I just feel like really, really needed an editor. It kind of feels like it jumps around a lot. The transitions aren't really smooth. But overall, I would rewrite How Does It Feel? But I love this series so much. If you read this series, let me know what you think. I know some people are not fans. I really liked it. Which leaves me to A Fate Inked in Blood and A Court This Cruel and Lovely. So I will say this isn't really fair because I haven't finished A Court This Cruel and Lovely. And while I am enjoying it, I do think I'm going to, as of now, and I will say I'm 65% in, so pretty far in, I would burn A Court This Cruel and Lovely, and I know this is so beloved, and I will probably immediately regret saying I'm going to burn this as soon as I finish this book. However, it does have a lot of tropes and a lot of things I've seen in other fantasy romance. Like, it doesn't feel super, super original. I do like there is the aspect of stopping time, and I recently read another fantasy romance that used that, so I feel like that might be why I'm also thinking of it as not being super original. But if I had to burn one, I would probably burn A Court This Cruel and Lovely, but still, it's been a really solid read. Which means I would reread A Fate Inked in Blood. And honestly, I'm okay with that because I really enjoyed this fantasy romance. I know it has really mixed reviews, but I'm a huge fan of The Last Kingdom on Netflix, and I just love Norse-inspired fantasy romance. And I just had a really fun time with this book. I love all the books I've read by this author, so I would definitely reread A Fate Inked in Blood. All right, guys, that is it for my Reread, Rewrite, and Burn book challenge. If you are watching this video, consider yourself tagged, and please let me know down in the comments below if you would make the same choices I make, or would you pick different books? I'm always interested to see your guys' thoughts. And also, let me know, would you like to see this challenge done with dark romance or contemporary romance books? I have done this with different genres. However, it seems like view-wise, you guys really only like the fantasy romance one, but I can definitely do a dark romance one if you guys are into it. And I'd like to say a huge thank you to my Paladin protectors, Amanda, Erin, Kat, and Leslie. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel, and thank you guys so much for watching this video. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye!